Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're tackling one of the biggest challenges for parents right now, raising kids in this digital world. I mean, it can seriously feel like you're trying to navigate this huge uncharted ocean, right? And there's a new storm on the horizon like every single day.
And yeah, it can feel impossibly complex. You've got endless advice coming at you, conflicting headlines, new tech challenges popping up constantly. It's a lot. But what if I told you there was a simple, kind of timeless compass to guide you through all of it? A framework that actually works, whether you've got toddlers or teens, online or off.
Okay, so let's dive into what that is. If we can just forget all the noise for a second, what's wild is that decades of research all point to one core framework, the one thing that consistently helps kids thrive. You can think of it as the true north of parenting. So here it is. This is our compass. It's called authoritative parenting. And I know the name sounds a little formal, a little stuffy maybe, but the idea behind it is so simple and incredibly powerful. Look, it's not about being the permissive parent who's more of a friend, and it's definitely not about being an overly strict commander. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that perfect balance right in the middle.
So, this whole framework really boils down to two big ideas that have to work together. On one side of the compass, you've got warmth. That's all the good stuff. The affection, really listening, the connection, that feeling of being seen and loved for who you are. Then, on the other side, you have structure. This is the safety net, the clear, consistent rules and boundaries that help kids make sense of their world. But here's the absolute key. The warmth is what builds the trust that makes the structure actually work. You really can't have one without the other. They just don't work as well on their own. Okay, so let's put this compass to the test. Let's see how it helps us navigate one of the trickiest territories of all, the teenage brain. Because believe me, this is where that balance of warmth and structure really gets put to the ultimate test.
Because it's not just about, surviving the teen years. It's about really understanding their unique developmental needs. I mean, their brains are basically undergoing this massive renovation project, and they need very specific things from us, the adults in their lives, to come out the other side as capable, healthy people. And when you really dig into the research, it all points to these 6 core needs for teens to truly thrive. For example, take healthy exploration and risk-taking. Now, that doesn't mean, doing dangerous stuff. It means things like trying out for a new sport or taking a harder class. They also need a sense of meaning and purpose, to feel like they contribute. They need the freedom to figure out who they are and a feeling of respect, all while knowing deep down that there are caring adults who've got their back no matter what. All right, now for the big one, the one everyone asks about. How does our compass, this idea of warmth and structure, guide us through the absolute maze of screens, video games, and social media? This is, let's be honest, where modern parenting can feel the most confusing. Just look at this number, 97%. That's how many teen boys play video games. It just shows you how universal this is. We're not talking about some fringe activity anymore. For a lot of kids, this is a huge part of their social life. So the real concern isn't always the gaming itself, it's what is it replacing? And this is where that structure side of our compass comes right in. It gets us asking the important questions, like, are they still getting enough sleep? Is their homework getting done? Are they connecting with the family? Okay, and you hear so much about dopamine and screen addiction, right? Let's just clear the air on this for a second. The idea that screens cause these massive drug-like dopamine surges, it's mostly a myth. For most kids, the little bit of dopamine that's released during screen time is part of the brain's completely normal motivation system. It's the same system that lights up when they eat a delicious meal or have a great chat with a friend. It is not the same as the massive system-flooding surge you see with addictive drugs. It's just not in the same ballpark. So that leads to the million-dollar question. When is the right time for a smartphone? And the honest answer is, there is no magic age. Now, research does suggest that waiting is probably a good idea, just because younger kids can be more vulnerable to some of the downsides. But really, a much, much better question to ask is this: is my child ready for this big responsibility? And this is where a handy little checklist like the 4 Rs can really help you out. It's a simple way to gauge their readiness and turn what can be a super emotional decision into a more practical, calm conversation. It all goes back to using our compass, right? It's about balancing their natural desire for independence with the structure they still need to stay safe. And what about parental controls? Well, think of them like this. They're a gate, not a wall. They are super helpful for sure. They can act as a gate, creating a barrier to stuff you don't want them seeing or to just using the phone too much. But
They aren't a foolproof wall. Kids are smart, they can often find ways around them, so the most effective approach is to combine these tools, that's the structure, with ongoing conversations and connection, and that's the warmth. Okay, finally, let's talk about you. Because a well-calibrated compass needs a steady hand holding it. And let's be real, all of this can be incredibly stressful. It is so easy to get lost in feelings of guilt or anxiety. So let's spend a minute on how to manage the very real stress of being a parent today. Here's a really powerful tool that comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It's called the cognitive triangle. The idea is actually pretty simple. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are all connected. They all influence each other. And the cool part is, if you can consciously change just one corner of that triangle, you can shift the whole dynamic. Let me show you what I mean. So, let's walk through a quick example. It almost always starts with a thought. Usually an automatic, unhelpful one that just pops into your head. For a lot of working parents, a common one might be this: my working is bad for my child's development. And boom, that one thought can immediately trigger some really powerful feelings. We're talking guilt, anxiety, maybe some sadness. You just start to feel the weight of that thought. And what happens next? Those feelings start to drive your behavior, often in ways that aren't very helpful. Maybe you overcompensate by buying too many gifts, or you become withdrawn and irritable because you're just so consumed by that guilt. You see how the cycle just feeds on itself? But here's the magic. What if you stop and actually challenge that first thought? Ask yourself, is that 100% true? What if you reframed it to something more accurate and, frankly, more useful? Something like, parenting is about quality, not quantity. See what happens? By consciously reframing that one thought, you totally interrupt the cycle. That new thought leads to better feelings, like reassurance, maybe even confidence, and that, in turn, leads to a completely different set of behaviors.
Because at the end of the day, this compass isn't about being the perfect parent. Nobody is. And it's not about navigating every single situation flawlessly. It's just about having a reliable guide to help you find your direction when you feel lost. So, I'll leave you with this. What's one small way you can add a little more warmth or a little more structure today? Maybe it's just a 5-minute chat with no distractions, or a clearer rule about bedtime. And all starts with finding your true north, one small adjustment at a time.